Hi, I'm Sachikera. Today we will review the module on Ethics Your Responsibilities, Part 2. The focus of this week is on ethics and its role in your day-to-day life back on the job. We will look at individuals' responsibilities, differentiate amoral and moral approaches to management. We will also take a look at the Canadian ethical standards, then focus on common threats to independence. And lastly, we will look at ethical issues and considerations across borders. A list of required readings is indicated on this slide. You need to read selected pages from Chapter 4 and Chapter 8 of the textbook. You also need to refer to required readings from International Ethics Standards Board for Accountants. Diversity and non-discrimination in the workplace. In this topic, we turn to the principal ethical issues that confront mid-level managers. This material is important because many ACAF holders will likely occupy management roles at one point or another. Also, many of you will be in the position of reporting to managers and will see these issues from the perspective of an employee. The issues discussed here can also be considered as principal agent issues and also as part of corporate governance issues. In addition, these issues connect with changing ideas of how employee conflicts of interest are to be understood. Chapter 8 of the textbook begins with a discussion of the problems faced by Citigroup, a large American multinational bank and financial corporation. It was one of the companies that was bailed out of major financial losses by the United States government and thus saved from bankruptcy. You can read online about the many scandals confronting Citigroup, including money laundering, conflicts of interest, involvement in the bankruptcy of Enron, WorldCom, and other organizations, and a host of regulatory issues for which there were major fines and awards against the company. These all point to failures on the part of management to deal with important issues regarding employees. Management of employees is examined from a value perspective in 4 critical areas. The first one is a view of individuals. Managers have to come to some kind of understanding about individuals, including what motivates them, shapes their behavior, and makes them tick. Second is hierarchy and managing. Managers also have to think about the relationships between workers and their superiors. Third is groups. Increasingly, work is done in groups. So managers have to think carefully about small group dynamics, including what kind of groups to create, what size the group should be, and how to foster productive interactions. And lastly, the enterprise. Finally, managers also have to think about managing from the standpoint of the organization as an enterprise. A management values perspective may be explicit or implicit. Explicit values are stated in corporate policy as to how managers are to treat employees and how employees are supposed to behave towards management. For example, organization makes a statement that there will be no discrimination with regard to gender, race, religion, or sexual orientation. Sometimes the values perspective is implicit. That is, it is shown in the behavior and attitudes of middle and senior level managers and in the behavior and attitudes of employees. An example of a negative implicit values perspective, you may well have had the experience of walking into the store and getting the negative vibe that the values of management and employees are at odds with each other. Of course, there can be conflicts between the explicit and implicit values perspective of managements. For example, even if a company has an official policy of equal opportunity for all employees, it may only have older men of European descent occupying the ranks of middle and upper management. Enron is a famous example of a company with a widely lauded explicit values perspective that was violated by its implicit values. Both explicit and implicit value perspectives of management are open to scrutiny, criticism, and reconsideration. The authors of the text are trying to get you to use an ethical lens to consider various management values perspectives. Let's understand 4 central reasons why managing people is so important. First up is globalization. Firms have to understand and communicate effectively with a wide array of people, cultures, and communities. To be able to recruit the best talent in the world, firms need to know not only how to deal with people, but to understand the subtleties of managing a diverse workforce with global reach. Second is sustainable competitive advantage. Management practices is one area where a company can differentiate themselves, which cannot be easily copied by their rivals. The third reason is decentralization. Along with globalization, work environments are becoming less hierarchical and decision making is pushed down to the front lines of the organization. This shift puts more of a premium on people of the firm and their ability to make good decisions that project brand image and foster the firm's strategic goal. And the last one is knowledge and information. Knowledge is power in the current global economy, and the ability to create and share information within the network of the firm is critical. There are many different ways to think about human beings and what it means to manage them. One of the prominent ways to do this is to look at management as though ethics does not matter, which is management without ethics. In this view, managing is about getting stakeholders to do what the firm wants in order to maximize profits. Workers are thought of as human resources that managers should utilize like any other non-human assets to generate tangible bottom line benefits. The specific tactics that managers use to incentivize workers are carrots, meaning bonuses and promotions, and sticks, meaning layoffs and payment reductions. They are all of little consequence as long as they motivate workers to create the desired results. This approach to think about people and managing is both naive and dangerous. The foundation is fundamentally flawed. Ethics is, at its core, about human beings and human welfare in a community. In this view, a robust and rich notion of the person at its core, that is, people are seen as having ethical standing and significance. The value proposition of the firm inspires individuals who put in their best effort with their peers and collectively create outstanding performance that adds value for all stakeholders. Managing involves treating others as human beings who deserve respect and consideration, independent of their ability to do well for the firm, while also creating processes and forms of cooperation that deliver on the value proposition in the marketplace to make all of the company's stakeholders, including, of course, shareholders, better off. In the previous section, we discussed about some theories of the individual. In shifting realities in management of individuals and relationships, we now turn our thinking about how individuals behave when we put them in the context of corporations and particular relationship that exists in a corporate setting. First up is motivation. A central challenge arises when we think about people in companies. How do we get people to do things that the company or their superior wants them to do? Overcoming the gap between the goals of the individuals and the objectives of the firm is called the problem of motivation. Realistic theory of employee motivation has to include a range of needs, ERG: existence, relatedness, and growth. Existent needs are things connected to what we require for physical existence, such as food, clothing, and shelter. Relatedness is focused on our desire for interaction and connections, while growth captures our need to develop as individuals and in particular to make use of our talents. Similarly, equity theory points to the human needs for being treated fairly and equitably. If people perceive the company as fair, they are more likely to be motivated to work for the interest of the organization. Second is relationship with authority. One of the most important relationships within organizations is between an employee and his or her manager, as well as other authority figures. Abuse of authority may result in serious ethical risks, which is created by encouraging blind obedience to authorities within the organization, including ethical tunnel vision. For example, using the excuse, "I was just doing my job," while ignoring the bigger unethical context. In an organization, there is not just a top-down approach, but also a bottom-up process where employee insights are incorporated into organizational planning. Role of gender in relationships includes a wide range of issues including work-life balance, childcare, pay equity, office romances, sexual harassment, and many such issues. There is a wide variety of ways to lead, and companies will succeed best by acknowledging and using different styles to adapt to employee differences and get the most out of their collaboration. Psychological contract in the workplace are implicit set of assumptions that exist between people and that shape their interactions. A key part of creating harmony in the workplace and outstanding performance is being aware of these contracts and finding ways to match the expectations of employers and employees across key points of the contracts. Lastly, groups and teams. Teamwork is one of the new realities of modern workplace. When team members work together, they bring out the best in each other and address their tasks with ingenuity and efficiency. But teams can also be dysfunctional, with some members slacking off and acting as free riders, or they may just be a bad fit amongst members of the team, too many leaders and not enough followers, or the reverse. Managing change at the level of the organization. The reading on pages 295 to 302 covers several topics related to managing change. Bringing about desired change in an organizational environment, human resource management systems, entry and exit in situations such as restructuring and outsourcing, dealing with diversity including age, gender, sexual orientation, abilities, religion, family, responsibilities, and place of birth, employee growth and development, evolving organizational climates. In considering each of these topics, it is important to use the ethical toolkit that was introduced earlier. Drawing on each of the three traditions in ethics, ask yourself, what standards are appropriate here? How can we treat people with respect, do good, avoid harm, and act fairly? What sort of character are my organization and I exhibiting when we treat employees in a particular way? Are my organization and I achieving the goals and producing the consequences that we should?